Hello, everybody, and welcome to an emergency podcast that's forever and ever. The Kelly Fans podcast, episode number 26 of season 4. Scrabbled this together, myself and Cal, because about 3.5-4 hours ago it was announced that it's going to be Neil McCann who's taking over for Stuart Kettlewell. We did a podcast last night that most people probably haven't even watched yet, and as Cal said to me, that's already old news, man. We've got to get back out there. So here we are, Cal, here we are.
Indeed we are. So basically everything that was said yesterday is alternatively old news now. So we need to get this out and the immediate reaction to the new manager that's been appointed.
So what is your immediate response, mate? It's Neil McCann with Billy Dodds. And the thing that surprised me most is the length of contract right through to 2028. You'll be about 40 then. Were you surprised by A, the announcement, and B, the length of time that they've signed up for?
A bit of both, to be honest, because I mean it now marries up with exactly what I heard on Saturday, which was that McCann would be the new manager. And then there was some kind of conflicting news that came out to that on the Sunday about Robbie Neilson being back in the frame, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But it turned me a wee bit to twig that the contract was as long as that, because don't get me wrong, I mean, we all spent a good period of time talking about the Billy Bowie Christmas break clause, but I think that it'll be riddled with clauses, and I would be very surprised if Neil McCann is our manager for 2.5 years, because I think that would now be an insanely long period for anybody to be manager of a football club in the modern world. But I'm shocked because I thought we were going in another direction, but it marries up with the news that was given to me on Saturday.
So how do you feel about it then? I know when you messaged me on Saturday saying that you'd heard that Neil McCann was going to be the choice. I was quite surprised by that. I didn't expect Neil McCann to get given the job, and I certainly had readied myself for it to be Neilson. That seemed to be the way it was heading. There seemed to be people who were certain that Neilson had the job or was getting the job, and then it all turned around yesterday or the day before, and folk was now saying, no, they've not even done the interviews yet. So I've no idea what the process has been, mate. But in terms of the actual appointment, what's your initial response to Neil McCann getting the job? And then we'll talk about how he's managed to get
it. To be honest, I think that it's a mental appointment. I mean, it's really, really, really surprising. I actually like him. I've liked him for years and years. Sounds like I'm talking my school sweetheart there when I'm talking about Neil McCann back in Sky Sports in circa 2011, 2012, because I initially did a wee bit of coaching with Jim Jeffries at Dunfermline as well around about that time. But I just think that it does not add up with what we were led to believe, with how we were going for experience. Don't get me wrong, Neil McCann, vastly experienced in Scottish football, as knowledge and know-how. But there's a 100 different folk like that, that are regulars. I mean, Stephen Thompson, again, would fit that bracket as well. But I just think that it definitely doesn't add up. We needed a manager with experience. I thought we'd learned for that with the Kettlewell stuff. But and for me, the biggest disappointment is how it's taken this long to get somebody that would have taken the job a matter of hours after Kettlewell was dismissed. And I think that's the really glaring error for me. And I think that's something that we could live to regret, especially with the massive turnaround and swinging points that there's been over the last week to 10 days.
Aye, so I'm the same as you. There's something really doesn't add up here. And again, it's what I touched on last night, and this is how I feel about it. And then we'll get into the actual role that McCann now has and how we see that unfolding. But I said it last night, mate, and I'm standing by it. The way this club communicates, the narrative that we spin, and the stories that we tell are unbelievably bad. Because see, if we parted ways with Kettlewell in the middle of December as we did, and the next morning Neil McCann was announced at the end of the season, I don't think anybody would have minded. I don't think anybody would have been celebrating. I don't think anybody's disco dancing down in Shortleys and delighted with it, right? I don't think that's how it works. But it would have been like, all right, okay, and there's a guy who was working in football quite recently, who obviously knows the league, who played at a very high level, who was assistant to Rangers not so long ago, will know the players, and he's gone straight in and running it. And if he'd won 3 of the 4 games and now got the job, I think it's fine. I honestly do. I don't understand the 3.5 week gap to go and get a guy who ostensibly didn't have any work. The thing that's pissed me off even more is that he's watching the Old Firm on Saturday instead of being at our game. I can't fathom an excuse for that. Like, I just can't. I actually don't mind the appointment. I weirdly feel quite positive about it. I'm not entirely sure why. I was just texting Falsey about that. We'll go into that in a second. But the way that this has unfolded, it just, again, adding on to the stuff with Kettlewell and the back end of the McKinnon stuff, it just does not reflect well on the club, mate. It just doesn't look good, in my opinion.
No, well, that's exactly it. And there is in exactly where I'm coming from, because don't get me wrong, I think that had he been appointed a day after, of course, I've got to get some folk that will say, "Oh, what are we doing? What can we need to wait and carry out a full recruitment process and all the rest of it." It's obviously not got to please everybody, but what it would have showed was assertiveness and leadership, which is something that the club's been so sadly lacking for some time. And again, because we would be saying the same, we would be like, "Oh, it'd be interesting to see who else was in for the job." But the fact of the matter is, if they moved quickly and got McCann in, you'd say, right, they've obviously had a plan. Maybe McCann was close to getting the job in the summer and now he's ready to come in now after Kettlewell's obviously failed miserably. And you just absorb it immediately, because there's 4 games coming thick and fast. You've got Falkirk, St Mirren, Dundee and Hibs, which for Kilmarnock are all winnable games. But I'm not saying that we go and win all 4 of them or whatever, but we potentially pick at least one winner out of the 4 games if you get the new man in place and you just go on with things, and then that gives them the full of January, whereas now it just feels like we're chasing our tail. Getting into the biggest game of the season, again on Saturday against Livy, which we can't afford to get beaten, and McCann's got to be, what if you're lucky, 1-2 training sessions with the players, but in a weird way, I'm actually with you. I've got a kind of weird feeling that it could actually maybe work out okay, but I just think that the optics of it are terrible, and again, that's maybe something that we'll come on to again when we talk about the alleged re-interest of Robbie Neilson, which I've got a few views on myself.
Aye, so that's my main concern, and I honestly do believe that's the thing to worry about. Listen, he's got the job now, and he's got it for an extended period of time. There is no doubt in my mind that Neil McCann will have credentials to get that job. Similar to Kettlewell, obviously had credentials to get the job. Do you know what I mean? He obviously said the right things, and he's obviously able to back it up in some way with evidence. To me, the green flags for McCann are the fact that he does know the league, he watches the games all the time, and he does speak very well. I know folks said Kettlewell spoke well. I never thought Kettlewell did speak well, so I wasn't really on that train. I think McCann does come across very articulate and obviously knows the game. And again, he was the one pulling the strings at Rangers, right? That's what everybody's well aware of. So he has been operating in the league, right? I know it's not been in name and in title, but he has been up to very, very recently. Billy Dodds is another one, a kind of local guy. They'll know the club, they'll know the players. It doesn't fill me with delight and joy that they've got the job. I don't think it's massively ambitious, but I can see why maybe they've got the job. I just can't see why it's taken so long for them to get it. That's where I'm at. I just don't understand it.
Aye, I think that again, it's absolutely spot on, and that is the massively frustrating part, because you're thinking, right, it's maybe worth waiting for then if it's taking this amount of time, whether it's, and again, even like say Robbie Neilson kind of fits that criteria. I've been like, right, okay, let's go on with it. For me, I still think that even waiting 3 weeks when we need results and we need them quick was far too long anyway.
It was too long anyway, mate. It was too long if Jurgen Klopp rocked up. It's still too long. You've still throwing 11 points away, which can't afford today. But anyway, that's by the by, I know, isn't it?
Aye, no, exactly spot on. But it's one of them. He's in now, and we've just got to go. But we all know this league. If you can string together a couple of results, somebody else in the other end is got to be going on a winless run. But I don't think MD will quite reach the heights that both ourselves and Livingston have reached so far this season. But I just honestly feel that 9 points off the pace is just too much. And I stand by what I said on yesterday's pod, that even with this appointment, even if it was Robbie Neilson, even if it was Jurgen Klopp, Martin O'Neill, whatever, I still believe that Kelly this squad is no good enough to claw back a 9 point gap. It just isn't. Like I can't see that happening. And the highest I see Kelly finishing this season's 11th.
Aye, so that doesn't change, obviously, with McCann coming in. What's your understanding of the process then, mate? Go back to Kettlewell losing his job on the Sunday. I mean, we'll just be frank and honest. We don't know, right? There's no point kidding on the day. However, there's just no way at that game on the Sunday. The decision makers at Kilmarnock Football Club are watching that, and when Aberdeen score, they say, "Go, all right, we'll sack him now." Like, they must have known. They must have known that this is how it's gone. Short of us going up there and winning 2 or 3-0, and it buys him time, he was going to lose his job, right? So I just don't understand. I'm trying my best to piece together what the process must be in order for Kettlewell to lose his job, and then for it to go this length of time to end up hiring somebody who didn't have a job. I get the due diligence thing. I get it. You've got to put it out to tender almost and see who applies. But surely they've all applied that week. You know what I mean? I can't get my head around about it. What's your take on it?
Again, it's nothing new though with Kelly. I mean, you could argue that the quickest appointment that this board have really delivered was the Stuart Kettlewell one in the summer, which seemed mental when we had a hell of. He was appointed by the end of May, but history's shown us before. I mean, Alessio appointment was far too late when Steve Clark left, and we all knew that Clark was going to be leaving at the end of the season. Of course, there's that small part inside you thinking you never know, but by all accounts, he'd had enough either way with the abuse or whether the likes of no for the Kilmarnock support, of course, but for outside, and he was ready to settle back with his family. So we knew Clark was on the way out, it never happened. And then for the Alessio into the Dyer era was even more a disaster, because I actually made that point in a chat today. This isn't me saying that, again, Alex Dyer should have been given the job, because we've all went over all ground in this. You made the points in the forums yesterday. It was a disaster as a Kilmarnock appointment and manager. But when we sacked Angelo Alessio, like, at that moment in time, it should have just been like, right, let's just cut our losses and say, right, Dyer's taking the interim manager until the end of the season. Didn't they say that? They said he's got to be caretaker until the club come up with an appointment. He gets 3 games, he loses all 3, and then he gets given the job to the end of the season. You're thinking, in what trial basis does that merit? You know what I mean? Whereas had they just already been given the job, then there's nothing you can really do about it, and you just know that you get behind them. And then, again, the Tommy Wright one, the sacking just came too late with that. But again, I think he was maybe appointed within 10 days or whatever of Alex Dyer leaving. But again, that was too little too late as well. But for me, what it does show, and I know that some folk have debated about this, about saying, well, what football clubs do operate at that level? But it looks to me that we do not have a list of managers that we highlight and think that could be the Kelly manager in 6 months, that could be the Kelly manager in 6 years or whatever. We've got no process to follow, and every time that we sack a manager, we're starting from square one again. There looks like there's no contingency plan whatsoever, and I think that this is personified that.
Well, and all it means is now that there is so much pressure on Neil McCann. Straight away, there is so much pressure on him because he has a personal record. But again, it's a bit like Kettlewell. He's not appointing himself. He's getting in for a job and he's getting the job. And congratulations to him for that. But there is so much pressure on this guy because exactly what I've said, mate. I honestly, firmly believe in my heart of hearts that if they had went to Neil McCann on the week of Kettlewell's sacking, right, and he'd come in as interim manager, like Doolan has done, and now they made the decision, rightly or wrongly, right, we're going to extend it for whatever reason. We've seen things behind the scenes, results have picked up. I would totally get it. Fine. Whether or not I think it's the right appointment, by the by, it's not me that's making that call. It's the additional confusion around about how this process is unfolded. And I think that is damaging, man. I really do. So, but here we are, mate. McCann's got the job. The Neilson thing, obviously, other names were getting spoken about. Bruce Springsteen, I was going to say there. Steve Bruce. I've got these Pussy Patrol t-shirts, man, if anybody's want them.
I know at least a few folk who will happily wear them. One being, of course, Robert Scott.
Aye, so sorry, Brucey Patrol. That's what we took it off of then between us. We're not that funny. But listen, all that obviously fell by the wayside. Robbie Fowler apparently was interviewed. I don't know. You hear at the weekend McCann gets the job. Apparently Neilson comes back into the running. The vibe around that is that Neilson, I mean, I don't know who makes this stuff up, to be honest with you, but Neilson wanted X amount to spend in the January window are we to assume that there's no money there now? Is that the situation as you see it?
That is exactly how I see it, which is whether that is true or not, that is how it looks to the Commander support now, which is a disaster, to be honest. I think that the club failing to control that narrative going out there, and that's what the optics now show. You know what I mean? It shows that it looked like Robbie Neilson was happy to take the Kelly job, but he wanted certain assurances. He's now not been given those assurances, therefore it's all right. We Neely's got to take the job, and here we are. And again, whether that is accurate or not, it's besides the point, because that's the narrative that is now out there, and that is what folk will ultimately believe, because we have not been able to communicate. We've not been strong enough in our communication throughout this entire managerial hunt. I know, but listen, we speak every week on this about Aberdeen and all that, been bigger clubs than Kelly, but look at that. Within about an hour of Jimmy Tolini losing his job, the Daily Record had some hang up top 10 candidates to replace Aberdeen. Kelly stuff, nobody was even interested whatsoever. You know what I mean? So not only have we not get the support for the mainstream media, but we're not doing enough to look strong. And as you've said yourself, to tell our own story here, and that's been really frustrating. And again, once again, to reiterate, I know for a fact that is no anything to do with the actual media personnel that's in the club. I know that it comes from beyond that, and these guys are sitting there and they're ready to work hard and they're ready to get good stories out there, but the club overall just appears to want to bury its head in the sand now.
Aye, it's not a good look, mate. It's not a good look. So, but here we are. Neil McCann is now the manager of Kilmarnock. Billy Dodds is his number 2. Let's talk about Neil McCann. His managerial career is nothing to shout about. He's not actually been in a managerial role officially for about 5 years. He got sacked as Dundee manager the year when we still had Clark. Billy Dodds has had a plethora of jobs over the years, both as an assistant and as a kind of head coach or whatever. No doubt about it, there's a lot of experience there between them, and two guys who really will know the league and will know how to go about winning points. Whether they can actually do it or not is a different story. Set aside how this has all come to be, which I think is an absolute clusterfuck, to say the least. What's your actual thoughts and opinions on that as a management team for Kelly in this situation?
Aye, again, it's without going over the old ground. I mean, I'm more surprised and shocked, but I'm not that down and out about it though, to be honest. Like, I mean, but that's somebody that's looked at Neil McCann favourably for years and years. Whether that means I think he's a good manager or no here, maybe I'm just declaring my actual love for the guy or whatever. But I just think
that's a good thing to do. He's a nice looking guy too. He's got a nice way.
He has, man. I just think that he's an excellent communicator, and known the same way as you've said that folks say, "Oh, well, Kettlewell's a good talker." I never bought that for a minute. I think that McCann's an excellent communicator, and I think that whatever his messaging will be direct, clear, and well thought out, as opposed to rambling, egotistical rants or whatever that Stuart Kettlewell was carrying out on a weekly basis. Actually, I think that Billy Dodds, believe it or not, is a good number 2 there. I think that he's got plenty of coaching experience, which a lot of folks seem to overlook just because of how prevalent he's been on open all mics for years and years. But again, he was Gordon Chisholm's assistant manager, Jim McIntyre's assistant manager, and then assistant manager Neil McCann. Before going on his own right, his manager in Inverness, and doing a pretty good job there. Who we know that firsthand. I think we only beat them once that season. Got Inverness to the playoff final. They obviously get hammered with St Johnstone over the 2 legs, but then the year after they get some to the Scottish Cup final as well. So, and again, he's somebody in Will Ken who he would actually support when you come like that. But the fact of the matter is that he'll know Kilmarnock, he knows Ayrshire, and I think it's actually again, it's not the news that they wanted to hear, but this is what happens when you wait 3 weeks for an appointment. If this was announced the day after Kettlewell goes, of course you've got to get folk a bit pissed off. But folk just absorb it, and the games come thick and fast.
We've already moved on, Benu, mate. That's it.
Exactly.
So, from my take on it is, I actually think I understand why people are totally turned off by it in terms of the actual appointment itself, because neither of them have on paper that specific experience that we were probably looking for. If you go to the likes of Robbie Neilson, who's the best person to contrast it with, who very recently has been managing in the divisions at clubs like Hearts and Dundee United. But for me, man, I think between them, they have quite an impressive level of experience. I'm talking about as players and coaches and managers. And again, I know it doesn't count for much, and you're talking there about Stephen Thompson, and it's spot on, mate. You wouldn't be happy if you get the job. But these guys are still properly ingrained in that Premier League. They watch the games all the time. They'll be talking to other coaches. They'll be talking to players. They'll have their relationships. So I'm actually no too depressed about the appointment itself. I think it would have been better to get that in the summer. I would have think it would have made more sense. I'm a wee bit more concerned about their ability to manage a crisis. I don't know if there's any experience there, which we're definitely in. But I'm actually all right with it. I think the two of them come across as fairly likeable guys. And the thing that I'm hanging on to is the fact that they were operating at a pretty high level in this division 6-7 months ago. And I'm hoping that they can really hit the ground running for that exact reason, mate. There should be no bedding in process here. They should know all the players. They should be going in there to take training tomorrow and be putting their stamp on that team by Saturday, mate. So that's what I'm kind of hanging on to in terms of positives.
Aye, that's what I think, and I don't think that there's any doubt that, I mean, say this appointment was stamped a year ago, folk would say, what the fuck, how's that happened? But they've definitely rebuilt their stock after the Rangers stuff. Like, there's no doubt about that, despite it not looking that successful. Like, you know, with what Ferguson was their task to do. But I think that I even remember seeing that in the summer where folk were saying, oh, well, maybe if Burkie was to get the job and somebody like Neil McCann was his assistant, like that's where it all kind of stemmed from. And they've completely rebuilt their stock, whereas a year ago, certainly 2-3 years ago, you would have never walked the road they were on. So they deserve credit for that. But aye, that's it. They're in the building now. I'm with you. They know the league because they were coaching in it last season. They commentate on it and give their viewpoints every single week. They're in and around the game still. So there can be a bedding in period. We need results and we need them fast. And that's going to start Saturday away at Livingston.
What do you think attracts Neil McCann and Billy Dodds to the job?
So I think it's a bit of both, because I think that they see the potential of the club, where they think that if I can get this right, you know, like I can completely rebuild my stock, or I can get Kelly competing at the top half of the table or whatever into next season. If I go and keep them up, then I've got a full clean slate to build for in the summer, all that stuff. But I'm not going to lie, there's an element of desperation about it. And I think that, and that's what I told myself at half-time on Saturday, because I thought, like, this looks like we could be going down without a whimper here. And I'm thinking, who really has got to risk their reputation to come in this unless they're desperate to come in? And I think that Neil McCann is desperate to get in, but I think that's because he backs himself as well. I don't just think that he would take any job, so to speak, but I think that he backs himself to come in and do a good job. But let's be honest, the job they know isn't as attractive as it was 3 weeks ago when Kettlewell was sacked, and this is now what we're left with. And I think that is maybe an indicator. Again, I don't have any inside knowledge of that, but I just know that you're looking at that job, you're thinking, all right, I've got these running games coming up. We can start looking up the table. You never know to know, oh shit, we're 9 points behind Dundee, who are supposed to be in a three-way fight to avoid day two places. And it looks like it's all about avoiding automatic relegation.
Another positive for me, mate, I would say, is the profile of the two of them. They're high profile in Scottish football. I'm hoping not only does that increase the sort of, I think there needs to be a wee lift in energy around about the full club. We've spoken about that at length. I know everybody agrees. Everything feels so flat. So that's what I mean. There's going to be eyes on this football club again. I felt like under Kettlewell we were kind of pushed to the side, mate, and like folk were like, "Oh, aye, Kelly and Kettlewell, whatever." But now I feel like because of the BBC and because of how recently they were working at one of the Old Firm, their feet are going to be to the fire here, and I think that's a good thing. I think it raises the profile of the club. I'm hanging on to some desperate positives here, mate. And I'm thinking I'm doing a good job. Actually,
no, I think you are.
I am Neil McCann's. Actually, I'm his agent. That's the truth. He's going to be Kelly gone.
I genuinely agree with you, though, because I think that at least it's got us back into that four where rightly or wrongly, because looking out for their pals, but sometimes that's what it's about. And Neil McCann and Billy Dodds are two guys that are definitely well thought of in the Scottish football media, hence why they keep getting gigs doing that. And I think that it at least puts there should be a bit of interest in Kelly again with somebody like that. And again, let's go on. And I know that it's the generation before me, really, but you're talking about two top football players as well. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I'll say. I honestly do think that that's a better appointment than Stuart Kettlewell, but I don't think that many folk wouldn't be. And I've said that for day one. But I was looking, both these guys are internationalists, played with unbelievable Rangers teams, played in England, well, in Neil McCann's sense. And I think that they were two brilliant football players. They do have a coaching career to back it up. Maybe not to the same experience that I would like as a number one in successes that way, but I think in a way that you probably maybe could do worse, but it's just underwhelming because of the timing, really underwhelming because of the time.
Aye, fair man. So beyond that, mate, the obvious links are going to be the players, and really that's what's important here, mate, because the job is now done. They have been given the role. Our job as supporters is to back them as long as we possibly can until we feel that you can't back them anymore. I think the vast majority of Kelly fans will do that. I think we will get a wee lift, regardless of how people are feeling right now, but when it comes to Saturday. But the most important thing is the players, mate. How do the current squad feel right now with that announcement? Moreover, what kind of players can you see them bringing into the club?
I think that the current squad have got to feel a bit of relief because at least they now know where they're at. Like, I mean, they're sitting, and I'm pleased for Chris Dillon as well because now he can go on with his job, and that'll be a good handover and somebody that obviously they'll respect and all the rest of it. But at least now there's a clarity that we were all looking for. This is where we're at, whether folk are happy with it or like it or no. This is us to at least the end of the season, because unless we go through a mad spell at Wilfred Nonset Celtic, that these are the guys that are tasked with keeping Kelly in the Premiership. So I think that will give the players a lift, but I hope it puts a rocket up them a wee bit as well. And I think that both McCann and Dodds, although likeable guys, are capable. That they'll have high standards, and because of their playing career, but they'll know the strengths and weaknesses of the squad. I think that, in fairness, McCann's Dundee team. Let's not rewrite history here, by the way, as well, because it ultimately ended in failure. But McCann was tasked to keep Dundee up, and he done that. But he initially came in and gave them a huge lift in that bottom six, and for the lot dead and buried, and he turned them around. He then tried to play a certain style of football that didn't really like. He was probably overcommitted to playing out, and wanted to play good football. I think he's since said for there that he would learn for those lessons. But I think it's clear to see that he obviously does he does have a style of football in mind, which is always welcome. But the fact of the matter is that you actually see he's winning games. But you'd hope that both McCann and Dodds, winger to striker, you're hoping that we maybe set our teams up like that. And I would find it hard to envisage a Neil McCann team, considering the career that he had and the type of player that he was, that we wouldn't be playing wingers. So I think that'll be one of his first ports of call.
The obvious links will be there with the Rangers squad. I already see folks saying we'll be gone, and my algorithm's already feeding me Rangers fan pages saying, we should send them Clinton Insiala and Lyle Cameron and the boy Curtis. Can you see any Rangers players ending up at Kelly this January?
You would like to think so. And I think that would be welcome. Again, Finlay Curtis has obviously got a good reputation. Insiala, again, is one he's went through. But again, I don't think that he's exactly what we're needing, considering he's a kind of inexperienced centre-half. We need experienced centre-halves in the building. But I would be happy with Finlay Curtis or Lyle Cameron, certainly, to come in and try and kind of lift the place a wee bit.
Aye, so it'll be very interesting to see. Right, man, as we always do, I'll go over to the X if I dare. See the Kelly FC forums were actually doing in preparation for this.
They were so.
The bit in Chernobyl where they go and try and put the reactor down before it all goes mental. I think that was what was happening, right? Got loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of messages here. 40 odd, so we'll just blast through them as quickly as we can to give everybody their they give everybody their say. So the boss bust gets in touch and says, yet another defeat against Hibs on Saturday, and our Withers original sucking, jumper knitting, Russell Howard loving pathetic fans can't even muster a boo. What's the deal with that? And now we get duds like McCann and Dodds. I feel sick. I won't be back until they're gone. Alexander Marchi says, initial reaction is shock and disappointment, but knowing their budget and situation, perhaps we can't attract anyone better. Let's get behind them. Christy Sykes, personally, I wanted Neilson. However, we now have McCann. I do think he'll get us playing good football, and provided we get a couple of players in, we'll stay up. I'll be at Levy to back the team. Alan Taylor said, why wait 4 weeks to employ 2 blokes out of work when you can wait 4 match days with a temporary manager who made the side worse? Logical. To me, that's the big issue, mate, is how the appointment is unfolded. Now that the appointment's here, I will be behind Neil McCann without a shadow of a doubt. But honestly, I said this to Foldsy when we were texting about it. McCann loses on Saturday and he's nearly done already, mate, because of all this. Like, it's the pressure is absolutely enormous on the guy.
Aye, huge. And you already made reference to that earlier on in this, so and I completely agree. It's a must not lose. Anyway, it was a must not lose, period, but particularly for McCann to come into this. But he's definitely will get the backing. Again, you look at the polls, the famous polls that will now dictate every Kilmarnock manager, both on Twitter and the KillFC.com forums. But Neilson was the overriding choice for everybody there. But again, we don't know the ins and outs, whether it was even viable or not. But it's just that the optics it don't look good, and McCann's got to come in and hit the ground running, and we've just got to hope that he can.
Mikey Kemure says, appointment reeks of we are skint, no ambition to even stay in this league. He has a worse win percentage than Kettlewell, just being kicked in the balls by the board, and it feels depressing. Gunnar Van says, if this is the cheap option to enable us to fill holes in the squad with better players, then I'm fine with it. My fear is the funds are not there. They'll have to click their brown brogues together to create a miracle. So maybe that's it, man. Maybe the money. I mean, again, we're talking about Robbie Neilson. I'm a wee bit wary here that the Robbie Neilson chat is where we're talking about bringing Steve Clark back here. I mean, Robbie Neilson wasn't exactly going to come in and put 2,000 onto the attendance straight away either. Do you know what I mean? No. So it's like, to me, I'd have plumped for Neilson personally, but I don't think there's that much in it that it's like it's now a disaster because we've not got him. That's my personal take on that one.
Aye, it's a tough one because again, I just think that Neilson's obviously get far more to CV as a manager, you know what I mean? As a personality, and that things are completely different. But no, I agree with you. It's not like we've went for like this. Again, Neilson would have been in the summer kind of boring, but it would have made a lot of sense in thinking, right, aye, well, that's fair enough. But he didn't exactly get the juices flowing either. But I think that when it comes down to the pair of them, it's a no-brainer if I'm being honest. But again, McCann's in the building, and we've just got to back him. But I think that honestly, whenever his club interview comes out, which will maybe be tomorrow now, I'm not too sure. I think that you'll find a lot of folk saying, I really like the way that guy speaks. But again, how long that will last, I don't know. But I think that there's certainly a wee bit of passion and charisma there.
Aye, okay. David Hanna got in touch. Given the damage done by Kettlewell's ludicrous recruitment, we need players more than a manager. The only thing that will make McCann a success is the ability to bring them in right now. And if his connections mean we can say maybe get the likes of Lyle Cameron on loan, then there is hope. Alan Agnew, Friday Night Football on BBC. God help us, I detest that man, Billy No Mates. Ian Preston says, we'd have just about taken him over Kettlewell in the summer, but now it seems like such a cheap option. Still, he's here now, so we have to back him. Graham Hopkins, not an appointment I thought would happen. However, we need to give him a chance. Hope he's got 5 players lined up that can pick him straight and that can come straight into the team. Owen McLean, my initial reaction was pure shock, but do you think he will help us maybe sign the likes of Finlay Curtis or Lyle Cameron on loan? We've already spoken about that, mate. It's a good point. Pride of Ayrshire says, history has shown McCann has been desperate for this gig, both on the telly and off it with his applications numerous times before. Strikes me as the type who'd have his application in within days of Kettlewell's sacking. Point is why did it take him so long to get here. That was the point you made earlier on.
I again completely agree with that, man. I think it's a very good point, as are the other ones. I think that folk are forgetting as well that McCann was involved in an agency as well, so he definitely will have contacts. So I think that he will hit the ground running transfer-wise. That's not me saying, we've got to be signing 4 or 5 experienced guys to come in and days a turn, but I think they will definitely have the ball rolling and hopefully some loans to come in and improve us.
Kyle Anderson wouldn't have been my first choice along with most of the fan base, but I'm not totally against it. Yes, it tells we don't have money to spend, which I think most of the fans knew deep down anyway. I actually think he'll make us hard to beat but I don't think the football will be the best. Mark Robertson, it's time to be positive. Quality additions will be signed. We're going to win on Saturday and catch Dundee by February before ending in 9th place, as well as going a nice long cup run to Hampden. And next year we'll be in Europe, Rodney. Mark's going to,
Who's that message for?
Mark Robertson.
Love that, man. A bit of positivity there.
That's what we need. Ian Barr, it's all about getting new players. The current squad are not going to dig us out of this. If the management team can get them, then we've got a chance. Dean says, why wait 3 weeks to appoint a guy who'd have taken the job 3 minutes after Keck got the bullet? Sean Cowan, I'm very underwhelmed, but I'll back him, as I do with all gaffers. Scott, 3 weeks it's taken to get the dynamic duo in from Sports Sound. Not only is the club skint in relegation bound, but we're now a laughing stock. Galak says, I'm content enough with him being appointed. But time will tell, but I do think he'll bring good contacts and he's probably learned from his past mistakes. I mean, when I say the fact that he's handsome, a handsome man will get his message over. He might be the alpha male that we need.
Well, I think that's definitely the Kool-Aid I'm drinking out of there, man. So it's good that Galax on the same side as me there.
Absolutely, man. So Dave Alex says Billy Dodds has a good winning record at Rugby Park and proved they can outwit McInnes. Lindsay Wilson says Neilson obviously wanted money that we don't have, and I feel this spells relegation. Only positive I can find is McCann bring in loans. I've got more of an issue with Dodds. Didn't think this is where we would ever get to. The communication from the club to the fans is very poor. Pearson Kelly, BM, got in touch to say I'd be keen to know what approach is taken when interviewing applicants, because it's certainly not based on their track record. That's my biggest concern. But can someone, mate, see if McCann's a raging success? Like, we've just got to remember that. You can't just then go, everything's fine. Like, the core issue will remain even if we finish 7th in the league here, and that's going to be addressed. That's the way I look at it.
This is what we referenced in yesterday's pod, that all of this stuff is now coming home to roost now because of how chaotic we are on the park. But this has been a long-standing issue and something that desperately does need addressed. If everything goes well and we're able to scrape it and finish 10th, it needs a rethink in the summer big time. That's not me saying the management team. Obviously, if they're able to do that, they deserve the chance. If they sign a 2.5-year contract, they will get that. But we really need a shake-up behind the scenes, and that's going to be a priority in the summer.
Greg Halbert says, today is the first day I genuinely believe we're down. Even if we get 11th, we have a nightmare of a playoff against Ayr, and given this season, we'd likely lose that. Samuel says, last January, we're ripping the whole lot of Rangers for appointing the Brown Brogue gang. Now we've appointed them. We've humped it. Alessandro Boscanero, who's not Italian, says, I think we'll definitely have a better style of play, but I still think we need to get some loan players in the door. The squad simply isn't good enough. Peter Simpson says, clear out any players we can get money for and give Hoddit and Doddit a chance to prove us wrong and build a squad to win the championship. Graham Orr says, are we that completely and utterly skint? No other reason for appointing the Chuckle brothers. Callum McGee says, I like McCann as a guy to go for a pint with, and as a manager uninspired. Both have fucked it in the summer with the Goth and took too long to bin him. Should we start a GoFundMe? Skev says, they've released a statement asking fans to be patient, struggling in the league, and 4 weeks later appoint Neil McCann. How much are the board paying these guys for a bag of mushrooms? Oh, how much are the board paying these days for a bag of mushrooms? Suggesting there that the board are on mushrooms, do we think? That's obviously allegedly. Unconfirmed reports coming through.
Unconfirmed reports indeed. But aye, again, it's just, it's a mess. It's a complete and utter mess. It's mixed communication. We're all hearing things to the contrary. And even what I'll come back with as well, some of it reeks of what happened in the summer. The news that Kettlewell had broke, everybody was going nuts. Don't get me wrong, the McCann stuff never broke out in the mainstream media per se. It was in the running. But remember, it was all this, no, we're still to interview candidates, and believe it, Paul Tisdale was one. No, he's still to be interviewed for the job, and it's no Kettlewell day after it's announced to be Kettlewell. So again, everything is just all over the shop here, man. And aye, again, will they listen? I don't know. And we all know there's been other mitigating circumstances and a lot of personal stuff going on there with certain folk at the club, which we wouldn't wish upon anybody. But fact of the matter is that this has just been an absolute mess for the last 3 or 4 weeks, because everybody knew that Kettlewell was never going to last. I think I called it in what pod all the way back in October, man, maybe a week or two even after the Hearts game. I'm like, he'll just not be Kelly, man, just coming the end of the season. And I was proven right. So it's always been on the periphery, and again, the contingency plan has just been non-existent.
Scott was asking about how the interviews take place, and somebody else. Gregor says, how close do you think Neilson was to accepting the job? Again, we don't know. Martin Barkley, Billy Bowie's a good man, Kilmarnock at heart, firing money at the club, saving the club. He's not the problem. My concern is the people around him who are advising him. Do they really have any knowledge about running a football club? McCann's appointment is clearly a financial decision. We were told it wasn't there this season. We need to hope McCann pulls us out the mire, as unlikely as it sounds. I hope I eat my words at the end of the season. Managers and players come and go, but we're all killy till I die. And that's the God's honest truth, mate. We preach that every single week, Bartley, mate. Absolutely.
Aye, well said, mate. I agree wholeheartedly.
Captain Colombo, is this further confirmation that the biscuit tin is literally empty? Maury got in touch to say it's post Steve Clark all over again. This appointment, whoever it was going to be a gamble. Here's hoping he can get something out of these guys. Dodds pulled McInnes's pants down a couple of times when he was at Inverness, so hopefully this isn't as bad as we're all thinking. Is that football wise, do you think, or have they got a friendship outside the football? Gavin or Hilson said, everyone is entitled to their opinion, and I will vigorously defend anyone's right to express it, but the reaction today to Billy Bowie on the board before the ink was even dry is way over the top. Neil McCann will want to succeed for us, him, and we'll give it 100%. Freddie Cogswell says, not my first choice, but I'm going to back him. Robert Gilchrist says, can we get Barry Ferguson as director of football? I don't feel we're quite staunch enough yet.
That would be brilliant, man.
That would be incredible. And obviously we're looking on the staunch side in this pod, so
aye, exactly. So it's exactly what we've been calling for, man. And a bit of passion, getting back to proper traditions, and
that's it, mate. Aye,
that's it. What's McCann wearing on the touchline though? But I think he'll be the McInnes ilk. I think he'll have his kind of smart runner trainers on. And
aye, I don't want to see the Zara outfit. I'd like a shirt and tie, or just stick with a tracksuit. No, he's not a tracksuit manager, you know. Maybe the 3/4.
Aye, that's what I see. I think, but that's more at the Zara catalogue.
Aye,
I think.
Aye, right, we'll see that.
Dodgy will have the tracksuit.
Dodgy will have the tracksuit. I like Dodgy. Dodgy, to me, the way he presents looks like he could quite easily be running, I don't know, Glenburn. Get me Raylan Kelly. Just the tracksuit, just kind of slightly ill-fitting. Get me. I think Dodgy strikes me the type of guy to be a brilliant laugh in the pub after the game, though. Do you know what I think?
Aye, definitely, really, man. Good man for getting the sponsors in.
He'll be in all the pubs. No, come on, he'll be in at the hairdressers. 100 quid, there you go, pal. Bit of patter. Always wins the puggy, get it pool. He's a good guy to have run up at the club, man. Come on, we're behind Dodgy. Right, and John Reed says, do we think this is another cheap appointment a la Kettlewell? Neilson wanted cash for players. Was that an X against his application? McCann so desperate for a gig that he takes it saying, I'll get a tune from the current squad. It's obviously the most ambitious appointment in the world, and there is no point denying it. But the finances, it's all speculation. We don't know for sure. But that's the narrative that's been allowed to grow arms and legs because of the way this has unfolded, mate.
It's exactly it. And because we've not been able to take control of that situation and really get our message out there and what we're looking for, because you go and read that statement that was released, it still doesn't add up with appointing Neil McCann, I'm afraid. So no. We've not been strong enough at all there in the communication front, and it's disappointing. But as we keep saying, McCann's in the building now. He'll get the full support of this podcast, but unfortunately for him, he's all got to hit the ground running, because we get beat on Saturday, man. Like it's meltdown time.
Of course it is. He's under so much pressure. However, conversely, he's up there and wins, and we bring in 2 or 3 good players, and we go on a wee run and pick up 6 or 7 points over the next month or so, then all this gets forgotten about. Most important thing, well, there's 2 important things now, is that we just need everybody just needs to get behind the manager and the players before the end of the season now, because we're in dire straits, and we've got a fresh start here. That's what we wanted. We wanted rid of Kettlewell. He's away. It's maybe not quite how we imagined it unfolding, but now we've got this opportunity. We've just got to try and find the positives in it. There are positives, I think. How positive we'll find out at the end of May, mate. So that's where I'm at. That's the second most important thing. The most important thing is?
The most important thing is the training ground.
The training ground. I was going to say these 500 Brucey Patrol t-shirts. If anybody's interested in a Steve Brucey Patrol t-shirt, we can get them to you for £9.99, or we'll do you 3 for 20 quid. So you just get in touch. Lovely. We've got them in all sizes. They're pink. Nice picture of Steve Bruce in the front, Brucey Patrol in the back. So you can let us know. The dream is over, mate. We hope Brucey would turn up, and it was dangled in front of us.
It was, man. I can't believe that that's where it kicked off, man. For the chat on the pod, man, to almost culminating in him being the saviour. But here we are. We'll just unfortunately need to settle for Neil McCann. But again, to reiterate, we're 100% behind him. I think he'll talk well. He'll get folk on side. But we just need to hit the ground running, and we cannot afford to get beaten Saturday, man.
Simple as that, mate. We'll leave it there. Right, emergency pod done. You get it up and out there, mate. Let the people slag us, please.
I look forward to it. Again, they'll see that the quality's not there, and we've got watermarks everywhere, considering we're using the free version of StreamYard at the moment.
Tragic. Absolutely shocking what's happened to us. We need Stu back, man. We need Stu back.
We do need Stu back, but it was too much to get into that studio in short notice like that. So here we are, and hopefully this will be there with the listeners and they can tell us their thoughts. And again, and then we'll pick up again on Monday, man. And then we'll probably do in the Patreon on Monday a kind of deep dive into McCann and Dodds.
Deep dive into Billy Dodds' tracksuit coming next week. Happy days. So there we go, everybody. Neil McCann, the new chapter is turned. We just need to get behind the guy and hope that we'd have enough to stay in the league and take it for there, mate. That's where we're at.
Monday, Kelly.
Thanks for listening. I've catch you soon.